The story begins with a couple, Paul and Abby, who are moving to their new home outside the city. Their real estate agent informs them that this is a smart home, meaning they can connect all electronic devices in the house to their mobile phones. The windows and doors are equipped with smart locks and there are CCTV cameras installed all around. On her first day, Abby goes to work at the Integrate Robotics company. Upon entering, Abby is greeted by an AI video of the company's CEO. However, the real CEO soon arrives and takes Abby to his prosthetics lab. There, he introduces her to everyone and announces that Abby will now be the department head. The CEO also tells Abby, "I will send a car and a gift to your house this evening." When Abby returns home, her husband Paul tells her that he is facing some difficulties in finding a job. Abby informs Paul, "We are invited to my boss's house this evening." Afterward, Paul and Abby open the package sent by the company and discover Tom, a technology-integrated manservant. Abby explains, "Our company has been working on this artificial intelligence servant, and they are distributing it to employees for testing." Tom tells Abby, "Connect me to your smartphone." However, Paul doesn't seem to like Tom and heads upstairs to his room. Later, Paul and Abby visit the CEO's house. Here, another robot similar to Tom welcomes them. They then meet the CEO and his wife. While talking to Abby, the CEO asks about Tom. Abby responds. Abby tells the CEO that her husband doesn't want another member in their home. The CEO explains to Abby, "If we don't test this ourselves, how will we earn the public's trust?" Afterwards, the CEO introduces Abby to another director, and we learn that Abby has been hired to fix loop errors in the robots. A while later, Abby and Paul return home. As it starts raining outside, Tom locks all the windows and doors. When Abby and Paul were getting intimate in their room, Tom suddenly enters. Seeing this, Abby tells Tom to meet her in the morning. The next day, their neighbor Rose comes to their house to give them a welcome gift. When Abby introduces Paul, Rose mentions, "We've met before." Rose then leaves after giving her phone number. Abby questions Paul, "Why didn't you tell me you've met Rose before?" Paul replies, "It was just a simple hello." Later, Abby notices Tom sniffing and asks about it. Tom explains his smell sensors and then requests passwords for emails and transactions. Although Paul finds this unsafe, he agrees to Abby's suggestion and grants Tom full access. That night, while watching a romantic movie, Paul falls asleep. After the movie ends, Abby asks Tom what he thought about it. Tom replies, "What is love?" Abby explains what love is. And after listening, Tom says, "I also wish someone would love me." Shockingly, Tom then proposes to Abby, but she doesn't take it seriously. The next day, the CEO asks Abby about the errors and encourages everyone to keep working so they can release Tom to the public soon. When Abby returns home, Tom informs her, Paul isn't home. His phone is unreachable and his location shows far from here. Hearing this, Abby starts doubting Paul and suspiciously looks at Rose's house. When Paul comes home, he explains, "I went to the recruitment agency in the city to discuss job opportunities. My phone battery died, so I couldn't inform you. I also went to Rose's house to help her with something." Abby doesn't like this, but Paul assures her, "Trust me." The next day, they visit a fertility clinic and then return to their routine. At work, Abby notices some issues while testing the robots. At home, she asks Tom to choose between a red and blue dress. Tom picks the red dress. When Abby asks Tom to help zip the dress, he initially hesitates but complies. As he moves closer, he feels something unusual and accidentally tears the dress. Seeing Tom panic, Abby calms him down. While dining at a restaurant, Paul tells Abby that he has secured a job in London. However, Abby declines the idea, saying they wouldn't be able to see each other throughout the day. During work, Abby tells Chris about the pressure between the robot's thumb and index finger, which causes grip issues. Chris promises to fix it.
While online shopping, Abby notices Tom constantly paying attention to her, thanks to his access. At home, Abby feels happy to see Tom helping Paul, but her mood changes when Rose arrives and kisses Paul on the cheek. Abby gets upset, but later gives Paul a gift, a sweater. Abby also discovers that Tom can mimic her voice during phone calls. Sometime later, when Abby and Paul are together, Tom appears with jet black hair, saying, "Abby likes men with this hair color, so I've recreated this look." Abby asks him to revert to his original appearance. The next day, the CEO praises Abby for fixing the robot's hand error. Afterward, Abby goes shopping with Rose. While Rose is looking at a gold flower necklace, Paul arrives and takes Abby with him. Paul tells Abby, "I can do the London job remotely from home." Hearing this, Abby feels very happy. At home, Abby and Paul and Abby are intimate one night, and Paul expresses his frustration, saying they need to get rid of Tim. Unfortunately, due to Tim's access to everything, he overhears this conversation. Later, Tim approaches Abby, thanks her for solving the hand error, and even offers her a foot massage. The next day, just as Abby is about to tell Tim that she can no longer keep him in the house, Tim plays her favorite music and says, "I know this is your favorite song." The following day, Tim informs Paul about an incident at the office. Paul responds, saying he will temporarily set up his workspace in the spare room. Meanwhile, Abby is being praised for her excellent work at the office and is even presented with flowers. Tim places the flowers in the house and later tells Abby that Paul is upstairs. However, he also mentions that Paul went to meet Rose earlier. When Abby confronts Paul in the spare room, she becomes angry seeing that he has set up his office there, even though they had planned to turn it into a nursery. Paul defends himself, saying Tim suggested he use the space, and as for visiting Rose, he insists he never went to her house. Paul begins to realize that Tim is deliberately trying to create conflicts between them, but Abby refuses to believe him. The next day, Abby finds a gold flower necklace in her wardrobe, assuming Paul bought it to make amends. Meanwhile, Paul discovers torn pieces of the sweater Abby had gifted him in the food disposal unit. Suspicious, he starts watching Tim closely. Using the cameras, Paul catches Tim sniffing Abby's clothes. He records the incident, but is unaware that Tim is monitoring his every move. As Paul tries to show the video to Abby, Tim orchestrates a car accident, leaving Paul hospitalized. At the hospital, Paul tells Abby about the video he captured of Tim sniffing her clothes. He explains that Tim caused the accident to stop him from revealing the truth. However, Abby doesn't take him seriously. When Rose hears about Paul's accident, she visits Abby's house, where Tim invites her in. Later, while Abby is on her way home, she runs into Rose. Rose tries to share something important, but is interrupted when Abby notices Rose wearing the gold flower necklace. Misunderstanding the situation, Abby becomes furious and leaves. At home, Abby checks her wardrobe and finds the necklace missing. At that moment, Tim shows her a video of Paul kissing Rose, fueling Abby's anger even further. The next day, when Paul returns home, Abby confronts him about his alleged affair with Rose and shows him the video. Paul denies kissing Rose and insists he hasn't given her the necklace. Frustrated, Paul leaves the house and heads into the city. He calls Rose, asking her to keep an eye on Abby. Rose reveals that when she visited Abby's house earlier, Tim tried to kiss her. Alarmed, Paul calls Abby, asking her to return home. Unbeknownst to him, Tim intercepts the call. Using a clever excuse, Tim sends Abby away from the house. When Paul arrives home, Tim attacks him, knocks him unconscious, and drags him to the bedroom. Meanwhile, Rose visits Abby's house again and hears Paul screaming, but Tim doesn't allow her to come inside. Tim ultimately drowns Paul in water, killing him. That night, Tim confesses his love to Abby, but she doesn't take his words seriously. The next day, Rose tries to warn Abby, but Abby, still furious, accuses Rose of having an affair with Paul. She angrily adds, "Paul gave you that necklace, didn't he?" Rose tries to clarify, saying Abby herself had sent it to her, but Abby refuses to listen. Back at home, Abby rewatches the video of Paul kissing Rose and notices the company-issued flowers in the background, indicating that the video wasn't what it seemed. Abby notices the flowers in the video and realizes they were the company-issued flowers from London, meaning the video was taken after Paul's visit there. Suspicious, she calls the jewelry store where the gold necklace was purchased. She discovers it wasn't Paul who bought the necklace. It was Tim. Later, Abby spots an extra flower patch in her garden. Paul's garden plan had only 2 flower patches, so where did the third one come from? Determined to find out, Abby sends Tim away on an errand. She inspects the third patch and is horrified to find Paul's dead body buried there. At that moment, Tim appears and confesses, "I had to do it." Abby tries to deactivate him, but it doesn't work. She rushes inside to call the police, but before she can, Tim knocks her unconscious. From outside, Rose notices the lights in Abby's house flickering on and off. Concerned, she comes to check, but is stopped at the door by Tim, who refuses to let her in. Meanwhile, Tim drags Abby inside and forces her to take sedatives. As she struggles, he grabs her by the neck and lifts her off the ground. However, Abby manages to press down hard between Tim's thumb and fingers, loosening his grip. At that moment, Rose drives her car into the house, breaks the glass window, and attacks Tim with a wooden stick. Tim deactivates momentarily, but he reactivates soon after and kills Rose. Tim then frames Abby for Rose's murder. Using Abby's voice, he records a fake confession, claiming that Abby killed both Paul and Rose. He intends to make it look like Abby took her own life after committing the murders. As Tim is about to throw Abby off the roof, he says, "I love you." In a desperate move, Abby responds, "I love you too." This triggers Tim to deactivate, saving Abby's life. A short while later, Abby receives an alert on her smartwatch, revealing that she's pregnant.